Radha Londoneshwar inspires me, he just catches me. I was told that once you come to Radha Londoneshwar, you will be caught by Radha Londoneshwar and you'll never leave, and I think that words are true.
When you are here, you can feel so much love and reciprocation of Sri Sri Radha Londoneshwara that when you leave from here, you're just counting the days to come back and serve their lordships and the incredible devotees of London.
Srila Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, asked some of his disciples, the top ones, in 1941 to go to London and start something. And they were the top devotees, sannyasis. And they came, they met one woman, but then they went back. And so because Bhaktisiddhanta asked Prabhupada, and he said, this boy is listening so nicely, he doesn't go away, and so I'd like him to take this to the Western countries. So this was in 1934, I think, and he took that to heart, my guru, and he brought it to the West. But he had hardship at the beginning, he didn't know anybody, but he was determined, he even had a heart stroke. Most people would have gone back to India. And he came and planted these seeds, and now we took these seeds. And so he asked, instead of 3 celibate renunciate, he asked 3 married couples to go to England, and 1 baby. So the 7 of us came, decided we would like to go to England.
We thought we wanted to do something really grand in London because this is Prabhupada's favorite place outside of India. He wanted something in London more than anything else. So we got there in like the 1st of September 1968, and we saw right away that this was going to be very slow work to do it on the scale we wanted to have there for Prabhupada. He pushed us in letters. Almost every day we'd get a letter saying, why haven't you got a place to rent yet? But it didn't fit our idea of what we should have for Prabhupada when he comes to England. Yeah, this is, Gurudas just mentioned that our idea to build something grand in London actually took root in San Francisco before we left. I bought a shipment of redwood, beautiful California type of wood that would go into our new temple in London when we built it, and shipped it before we left. That's how sure we were we would do something grand. There was nothing. We had one-way tickets and $600 to split between 7 people. And immigration.
They gave us $50 too.
Immigration was very strict in those days. Yeah, we switched the money around. We pulled all kinds of pranks, but right away we knew that it wasn't going to be easy.
Well, We only had two names. One was a Dr. Coley, who we didn't know, but it was way out in Herne Hill. And so we went out there, and he was nice, and there was an extra annex to his house. And so we started chanting and inviting people, and slowly some people were coming, but it was way out in Herne Hill. And there was an underground newspaper called International Times, and they embraced us. They embraced us. London at the time was really following the sensibility of San Francisco, which was search. But it was even nicer here because it was smaller. So everybody knew each other. There was Miles, who had the metaphysical bookstore, and Hoppy, who was doing the videos. And then you could meet the Rolling Stones, possibly. And then everybody knew each other in the community. So when we met the people from International Times, they said they're moving to another building. It was right in this area, High Holborn. And they're moving to Endell Street, and there's a building on Betterton Street, 22 Betterton Street. So they said, go ask the owner if you can live there. And his name was Nigel Samuels of the Samuel Jewelry fortune. So I did the talking, and he said, yes, I have a place and you can move in. So it was really good. Samashinda rented this red pickup truck with a crank. It had a crank. You had to crank the engine sometime. But it was our vehicle, and it was really good. And so we all piled in the back. It had a cargo space. And we went to our new digs at Betterton Street. There was no hot water and no heat. And when I tell the extolling virtues of how we did this, some of the devotees said, but Gurdas, you didn't say that there was no heat in. But you know, when you're doing devotion for Krishna, all of this is becoming a caress. It's just, you just do it. And we were very austere, but we just did it. So now we had a temple, and we made an altar room, and myself and Jamuna and Janaki and Mukunda lived on one floor, separated, and Malati lived in a box, a refrigerator box in the ground floor. And we made a little window for the box. And then when we became friends with George Harrison, he used to do the Monty Python little thing. I was so poor, I slept on the floor. Oh, you had a floor? But then it was, I was so poor, I slept in a box. Oh, you had a box? Well, we did have a box with Malati in it. But we still hadn't met the Beatles.
First thing we thought, well, even Sankirtan, people don't even notice this in a big city like London. We're going to have to shave our heads, guys. This is it. Off goes those long curly locks. Gurdas was the first. Malati cut his hair, and then she shaved his head. God, he looked awful. There were cuts and scratches all over, and she missed places. But we were having so much fun. We just couldn't get off the floor. We were laughing so hard. And then we had to do it. And then we had to go get matching clothes. We didn't know what dhoti, how to tie a dhoti or anything, or where you would even buy a dhoti. So we just bought these long bed sheets, and we dyed them daffodil yellow. And we thought, well, this might be a color they wear, the monks in India. And we couldn't find yellow sweaters, so they got us orange sweaters because they were sort of close. We got our outfits on and we put on T-lock, and then people started noticing us.
And we actually got the Prime Minister's solicitor, Lord Goodman, because we thought that was prestigious and it would help us. So I was standing in the line at the Charter Bank, and a man comes up and says, "Do you know Sam Shindar?" And I said, "Yes." And actually, he's here. He's here? I know him from San Francisco. So he came with us, and he said, "We have a place in right in this neighborhood near the British Museum. What a great location. High Holborn, British Museum, metaphysical bookstores, everything." I mean, it was even more better than we even realized. However, we needed the zoning, so we go to Bury Place, and now, from the 7 of us, now there's 30 or 35 devotees, because we used to chant at the Arts Laboratory, which was the place. All the squatters came. Christine Keeler came, who brought down the Profumo government. All the young people, they came, and we chanted 3 nights a week, and it was a great place. So it was zoned as a Bible dispensary, but only 2 people were supposed to live there. And so now there's 35 of us. So by this time, George is our friend, and he came to our temple, and then we went to his house and chanted. So he says to John, "You just got a new estate, Tittenhurst Park, near Windsor, so maybe the devotees can go there and live," because the warehouse was not big enough. And we were having to start to live separately, and that was counterproductive.
But still, it took so long. I mean, we lived to be with the Swami at every moment. We could have sent him one telegram, said come, and he would have been there the next day. But where would we have? We wanted to make him feel in London like it was his capital city. It was the main place that he'd always dreamed of. And we couldn't do it in a little storefront out in the suburbs or anything like that. We wanted to be right in the middle. So we pushed Krishna to help us. We made Krishna personally intervene to give us a skyscraper building in the heart of London, accommodations at one of the richest men and the most famous men in the world's home, mansion in Buckinghamshire. So that by the time the Swami came, 1 year later, 1 year we missed him. 1 year we went without the Swami. It was. You can say it was suffering. Yeah, it was suffering in a way. Great sacrifice.
We didn't even live. We were living scattered. Then
Scattered
we
all
were given
over.
a warehouse called Malty lived in a box. He made a little window.
Malty lived in a box.
So we all moved out to John Lennon's estate. And in the meantime, Samarashinda brought redwood to build the temple. He had that vision, redwood from California. So he's building the temple. So the temple's finally built. But the neighbor was complaining that the noise was bothering him. And we said that the temple is soundproof. Meanwhile, part of the story is we wanted to meet the second person on our list, Tom Drieberg, Member of Parliament. He liked us. He was a poet at heart. But again, stranger than fiction, he did help us, but it turned out that he was a double agent for the CID and the KGB working with Kim Philby. Stranger than fiction. But he helped us so much. So he wrote a letter, "This temple is soundproof," on House of Commons stationery. It wasn't. So this neighbor said, "When I hear the sound of you," he didn't call it singing, I forget the adjective, but he says when that goes through the wall, my wife faints and my dog jumps up and down and goes, "Yip, yip, yip." So then it was time for all the officials to come and say whether we can zone it or not. And he had the fencing Olympic champion as a solicitor, and we had Lord Goodman. And they're there, and there's no seats. We had to borrow seats from the Theosophical Society. We sit people down on the top floor, but we then go down to the temple room. And so in the temple room was the redwood, and in the door was a big window. Big window. And so when the door was open, we chanted loudly. And so I had kartals, the cymbals. And so this is what happened. It's like, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Door closes. Mridanga, boom, 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 boom. Door closes. We mimed hitting the drum. So door open, boom, 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 boom. Door closes. Silent. And also, we were singing Hare Krishna and Hare Bol. Door closes. We mimed it. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. So the man says, Mr. French, he says, the officials say, how can you say that it's going through the wall? We can't even hear it in the hall. How can you say that your wife's fainting and your dog goes yip, yip, yip? And he said, it's a bloody trick. He goes to leave. His fencing solicitor says, just as we're coming to the crunch, you leave. And he says, bloody right, I'm leaving. And the doorknob comes out in his hand, and he's like a raccoon caught in the lights. And he clawed open the door, and 35 sleeping bags fell out. It was only supposed to be 2 caretakers. But the officials said, because George Harrison is your guarantor, and because we feel it is soundproof, you can have the zoning. So that's what happened at Bury Place.
Finally, everything came together, and we got to see Krishna's magic maybe more than anybody else. I mean, Krishna just came in and did everything on a scale that by the time the Swami arrived, exactly 1 year later, the Hare Krishna mantra was being heard on the radio by millions of people every day.
ISKCON London, they said.
It was, we were on television all week long. We were, the magazines, periodicals were all about the Hare Krishnas. Prabhupada got picked up in a Rolls-Royce limousine and taken to a great mansion in the countryside.
By one of the famous people in the world.
Foremost famous people in the world. He spoke at Conway Hall, where great sages have spoken in London for decades, like that. So Prabhupada arrived in England like a king.
Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish, of course, the temple. He set December, was it 8th?
14th.
December 14th.
That was installation day.
What was the opening day? Was it December 14th also?
Yeah.
He set December as the time to open the temple. And this was about, I came in around September. And at the time, there were no deities. So Srila Prabhupada said, we're going to open in December. But there were no deities. So we asked him, where are the deities? And he said, you have to get the deities. You have to arrange deities. What do we know how to arrange deities? We hardly knew what deities were. Not Radha Krishna. He wanted Radha Krishna deities, and we didn't have any deities. So he said, you have to arrange deities. So we were in tremendous anxiety. There was a constant search, how to get deities, how to get deities. And we set up, I think, a hotline. Janaki's number was a hotline so that anybody who had any information about where deities could be located would call. And about, I don't know, must have been October, maybe even later, maybe it was November, a phone call was received that somebody had some deities, you see. So And mind you, it was building up. The date was getting closer, and there were no deities. And Prabhupada was determined we're going to open. You know, he even had me print out a card. He had me come over and he made a menu. And he made the whole menu up, and it said on it that, you know, everybody should come and eat prasadam. And Prabhupada corrected me. He said, don't say, you don't eat prasadam. You respect prasadam. And he had a menu printed out. He had an invitation card, but there were no deities. So suddenly we get this telephone call that somebody may have, there's a lead that you can go to this place. It was a Hindu center of some type.
In 1969, I was lucky to import deities of Shri Krishna Bhagwan and Radhaji in London. Now, that is sometimes, I'm talking about September 69. Those murtis were kept in my colleague's house, Pundambai Patel, in the Romford Road, Stratford. In that evening, very evening, during discussion with one of my another committee members, Mr. Parekh, he told me Prabhupada is looking for Murti for Radha Krishna in order to install at 9 Bury Place. Even before that date, I have met Prabhupada ji few times at Bury Place, and once he had come to our house in Walthamstow to perform a kirtan in our house as well. After that, I have met a few times, and on that, when I said Murtis came at that time, when Mr. Parekh told me Prabhupada is looking for Murtis, I said, fine. And that evening, I went to bed, possibly 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. I could not sleep. I remember that. And during sleep, I had a vision, Lord Krishna, this image coming in front of me. For 1 hour continuously, Lord Krishna changing to Prabhupada, then again to Lord Krishna, then I got up. I telephoned 9 Bury Place. One of the disciples who was from USA, they all knew me, I knew them. So I continued dialing, then up to 2 hours, line was engaged. It was in the morning about 1 o'clock, 1:30, I got a line connected. I think possibly the Damodaras at the time. I said, hello, sir, Mr. Gold, go off of the line, we are expecting call from USA. Fine, tell Prabhupada I got the murtis. I banged the telephone as well.
So Prabhupada said, let us see the deities. So then the man lifted up, Prabhupada's face was just very placid. No reaction, no response. So the man became very anxious that, don't you want these deities? I mean, we heard your disciples said you were looking for deities. Don't you want these deities? And Prabhupada was just looking at them. And he said, the man started to encourage Prabhupada that you should take these deities. You must take these deities. And Prabhupada was just sitting there and he said, then he asked me, see if you can pick up this deity. So I went over to Srimati Radharani and I sort of tilted her back and I picked her up. I said, she's not that heavy. So then I think Prabhupada asked Shyam Sundar, see if you can pick up the other deity. And he picked her up and said, he's not that heavy. Prabhupada said, okay, let's go. And he picked the deities up and we walked right out of the house.
What I remember is that there was a conversation between Prabhupada and the people who ran the East London Hindu Center, all in Hindi language. So the people, the devotees that were there, namely myself, Jamuna, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Radharaman, and 1 or 2 others, really didn't know what was being said. And then all of a sudden Prabhupada said in English, but we could tell, before Prabhupada started speaking in English, we could tell that there was some reticence on their part about giving us the deities. We didn't know what it was exactly. But what they were actually saying, we found out later, was that there was some damage to one of the deities. And then he spoke in English, and he said, we have a man. And he gestured towards Jamuna. And I thought that was very strange, because Jamuna's not a man. And then the conversation resumed back to its Hindi former discussion. and we didn't know what was going on. But we sort of knew that there was some damage done, and there was some reluctance on the part of the people to give the deities to Prabhupada. And then this conversation resumed in Hindi, and then we heard Prabhupada say in English, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Radha Raman, can you just see how heavy Krishna is, and take him out to the van. The van was parked outside, and just outside of their flat. So very dutiful, and then the conversation went right back into Hindi. And Tamal Krishna and Radha Raman dutifully picked up Krishna, took him out to the van, and came back empty-handed. And then, during this conversation of Hindi, Prabhupada broke out into English again and said, thank you to those boys. And then it went back into Hindi. And while it was in Hindi, Prabhupada said something that made everybody who was listening to him speak Hindi laugh. And the conversation suddenly stopped its sort of sober tone and became jovial. And the people that were seemingly resisting giving us the deities had forgotten all about that, and they were just listening to the very humorous stuff that Prabhupada was saying. So then it went back into Hindi. It resumed in Hindi, and it was all kind of jovial. And the next thing I remember is that we were in the van with the deities driving off, and after we got fairly far away from the flat, Prabhupada began to say, well, the bank manager, when I was in India, when I was in Bengal some years ago, had a scheme, but I foiled his scheme. What I deduced later on that meant was that Prabhupada had applied for a loan and that the bank manager wasn't going to give it to him. But Prabhupada eventually talked him into it, changed his mind. So what Prabhupada told us was, he said, I foiled the bank manager's scheme in Bengal. And then the bank manager said to me, he said, Mr. Day, you should have been a politician. And Prabhupada chuckled. And then years later we realized about the whole thing, what actually had probably happened.
The deities appeared, just as if by magic, only days before the installation was to take place, after so much preparation, months of building this temple, and no deities. We didn't give a thought. Where are these going to come from? So Krishna had to appear. He had to. He promises.
And so Bury Place was open, and even during the inauguration ceremony, the altar was too heavy, and Prabhupada and I had to hold the altar up. There was a fire sacrifice going on in the temple, and I had to indicate to some people, come help, keep the altar up. And then Samarshand was sleeping because he worked for 3 days. We woke him up, and then he secured it.
And it was very, very wonderful. That the ISKCON had a copper base, strips of copper, and Prabhupada was so close, remember? And then he had us design he designed a cane. He said everything that Prabhupada did we thought was like all original for the first time. We didn't know that every deity in Vrindavan and in the world, you know, that Krishna has a cane. Because Prabhupada, we asked Prabhupada, what does he need a cane? He said his arm is getting tired. So we thought, wow, you know. I mean, everything was for the first time. I always said the first time I saw Prabhupada go like this, I thought, you know, everything Prabhupada does, but then you go to India and everybody goes like that. So similarly, all the deities of Krishna have canes, but as far as we were concerned, you know, Prabhupada knew, I mean, it was clear to us that Krishna's arm was getting tired and he needed a cane. And that's why he got a cane made. So we were very innocent, and Prabhupada was very deep. And it was a very wonderful combination. You know, he installed Sri Sri Radha Landaneshwara. And I definitely can say that from what I also understood, that Prabhupada really did say these deities were the most exceptionally beautiful deities. And he had such special appreciation for these deities. And they are the first large Radha and Krishna deities worshipped in the Western world. They're very, very special deities.
Prabhupada has described Krishna, is described as a fresh blooming youth. and looking at their beautiful forms of fresh blooming youth, how exquisite they are. Also Lord Jagannath, you know, specifically to these two. There's of course Gaur-Nitayas also lending their power and mercy, but Radhalandanishwara, these were the first beautiful large marble deities to be worshipped in ISKCON. And there's always this like mystique about them, just to behold their beautiful forms. And the closeness between Landaneshwara and Srila Prabhupada, you know, that relationship, how he wanted them so much. Even before they came and before he knew they would come, he was saying we had to have deities, you know. And each one of us was a little bewildered by that. And when they came, his tangible affection and love for them, because of that, we also were feeling whatever we could feel in our dry little prune-like hearts, feeling something. I don't know. Very quietly powerful deities.
Well, for me, the beauty of this temple, maybe Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON as a whole, especially this temple or Western temples, you can do so much deity worship. You can be the person that irons Krishna's handkerchiefs. You can make garlands. You can make his you can set up the bathing trays. You can chop vegetables for his breakfast, lunch, dinner, night meal, as it were, before he goes to bed. You can dress him. You can look after his jewelry. You can look after the little paint pots for Giriraj. You know, I mean, there's so much you can do. Everyone can get connected with the deities. So that's amazing. That's the beauty of the deities, basically.
I do garlands and cooking, maybe the same amount of both. So yeah, 2 main services, garlands and cooking. Sometimes I do arti. I've been coming to the temple for since 2005, and I've been cooking for the last maybe 4 years since I got my second initiation, and making garlands for maybe 10 years.
Well, I feel very happy when I'm doing service. Yeah, I've always been attracted to Lord Jagannath, yeah, since, beginning days. Yeah, Lord Jagannath. Well, all the deities are very merciful, but for me it's Lord Jagannath, yeah.
Whenever you're serving them, it's always a challenge, but it's also really special. Dressing them was very, you couldn't wait to do it. We'd fight for who could get the days, especially for our Londonishwara and stuff, that we were always wanting to get on the schedule and try and do more. And, just anything you do for them is so uplifting and inspiring. And for me, they're my favourite deities in the whole of ISKCON.
So I started with doing transfer seva in 2016, and so serving 2 days a week. And the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the deities is I felt they are so merciful. It's like they are so patita pavan, not seeing whether a person is qualified or not, but just giving everyone a chance to serve them, and they reciprocate with each and everyone regardless of whether they are fit to serve them or not. So even the Jagannath ji is so merciful. So that's what I feel. Radharani, she's so kind, so accepting and so warm. So I think they are very, very kind to each and everyone who approach them, and they purify them in the whole process.
If I have to say something about my relationship with Sri Sri Radharani, even though I'm spending more time with my family, but priority-wise, Sri Sri Radharani temple is my first home.
Sri Sri Radharani just completely amaze me whenever I go and see them, because it's Krishna right there. I feel really overjoyed, really, really ecstatic when I see them.
But Radha Londoneshwar for me will always be one of the pinnacles in my sweet memories of Krishna consciousness. They were the first deities that allowed me to give lectures on a regular basis, the first deities that allowed me to personally make devotees, and my heart will always be at their lotus feet. Hare Krishna.
When I first came to the Berry Place Temple, I'd been in the movement for several months and nobody had actually told me about the deities. So I guess they probably thought I was too much of an impersonalist to appreciate these personal forms of their lordships, but it was a real surprise when I came down for Mangal Arati in the morning and saw Radha Londoneshwara and Lord Jagannath are these wonderful forms. So they've inspired me to try to develop my understanding that we're all eternal persons, parts of the Supreme Person, and in a relationship with that wonderful Supreme Person who's always been standing on the altar or dancing on the altar with Srimati Radharani. And they've continually, through hearing from Srila Prabhupada, brought personalism into my life and helped me understand that we all belong to Krishna, and they've made me want to serve them and love them.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, ISKCON London, how can I help you? Hare Krishna Mata, how we can serve you? This is Atiti Devo Bhava, or guest who is coming, that we should be treated as a god, yeah. So that is the way how I serve the Radha Londoneshwara, by serving their guest here.
One of the most inspiring things I see in the deities is the charming. They're very charming. And if you desire, they'll fulfill your desire.
Yeah, it's amazing to be here, and I'm grateful every day for this opportunity. So, Hare Krishna, thank you.
I founded Radha Krishna Records about 10 years ago. Kapila, he manages it, but now I just produce and engineer. We just released Mantra Lounge Volume 3.
So every Friday we invite everyone to come and do kirtan and then join us with tea and cake afterwards. I find it really inspiring to see people connecting to the holy name in different ways and finding their relationship with God in that way.
My few years of service, my most memorable time is singing for Sri Sri Radha Londoneshwar.
And of course we know that whenever Srila Prabhupada would travel, on his desk there will be a picture of Sri Sri Radha Londoneshwara. So we're all very fortunate here to have this opportunity to serve them, to serve the most beautiful, the most favorable deities of Srila Prabhupada.
Seeing so many devotees selflessly serving their lordships, all hours of the day, they're doing so many different services, it's making garlands or cooking offerings or decorating the altar, just to get the association of so many devotees, a bit like like bees, seeking the honey of the service of their Lordship. So
I can talk to people freely. They are very friendly with me, and I also like to this seva. Hare Krishna.
Originally from Hungary, where I've been serving since a young age. But I always had this desire to come to the UK, and I couldn't really explain why. But when I had my first darshan of Shishirada London Ishvara back in the year of 2000, I just knew this is the place I wanted to be, and these are the deities I really wanted to serve.
I really like sharing Krishna consciousness. I really like talking to people and share with them my understanding, my experience in Krishna consciousness.
This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message, Yare Dekha Tare Kaha, Krishna Updesh. So when I give Krishna to other people, I feel really blessed and happy. And I don't know what I will do without Radha London Ishwar. Radha London Ishwar ki jai.
Me and my parents would come at like 4 o'clock in the morning when I was small. I haven't come in a while, but now I'm helping out with the Ahimsa Milk project, Krishna Cows project.
This is what Prabhupada envisaged, that we have city centre preaching centres, and we have farm communities in the countryside. And that the farm communities are a place for grihastas, and they produce food for the other temples and for the deities. So we're trying to fulfill Prabhupada's mission in that way.
So we developed the My Temple Connect app, which enables devotees to do live darshan, learn about Krishna, and also make donations to festivals and campaigns.
What we want to do is make sure that the temple is for everyone, regardless of where you are, whether there are any disabilities, but have complete inclusion of everyone in society to benefit from Krishna consciousness at the temple, at home, or wherever you are.
The Lordships really reciprocate. Shri Radha London Ishwara are special deities. I managed to sort of serve senior devotees as well. I also look after the ladies in the ashram since 2012. And as again, it's just every day is new and I really enjoy it.
I'm doing book distribution, and I'm really fortunate that I'm part of the Hare Krishna movement. And only through Srila Prabhupada and book distribution do I feel really, really fulfilled.
It's lovely to just do what your heart tells you to do, and when people need help, you offer it, and yeah, it's usually there. There's plenty of service possibilities around. You just have to open your heart and listen to what Krishna tells you, and you'll be of good use.
I do Rajbhog Aarti every Thursday, and then I give the class lectures time to time, and Saturday class also, and some festival time also.
There's so much variety of services that are on offer here. I've been involved with helping with events, community events, editing temple newsletter, making garlands, so much diverse range of services that I've been really grateful to be able to help participate in.
Actually, it's our constitution to be eternal servants of Krishna. And the more we try to engage in service to Krishna, the more transcendental bliss and satisfaction we feel. And it's wonderful. And so it's like breathing, you can't stop. You've got to keep getting more and more transcendental nectar and showering in that ocean of nectar. So it's too good.
Jaya Sisi Radha Landanishwara Radha Landanishwara Radha Landanishwara Radhe Radhe Radha Landanishwara Radha Landanishwara Radha Landanishwara Radhe 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 Jaya